If he got a laugh, then he'd go. And the problem was stopping him. I mean, I think he actually did hold the record. I think he spoke for 15 minutes without interruption after I'd asked one question.
This was when I was with Edith Evans in a play called Gentle Jack, and the hotel left a meal for us because everyone else ate at, I suppose, 7 to 8, but we didn't get back till the curtain came down, so it was very late. And she sat there looking miserably at this cold collation, which really was curling at the edges. It wasn't at all appetizing. And this old retainer, who was sort of doubling as hall porter on the desk and waiting on table because everyone else had gone, it was so late, stumbled in, and he went up to her very familiarly and said, "Do you want to drop a, do you want to drop a, do you want to drop a wine?" And she said, "Oh, it's a half bottle of Beaujolais, would not come amiss." I thought you'd fancy a drop. And made this terrible leering looks at her. Oh. And then he turned to the sideboard to get this bottle of wine. And as he turned, he broke wind with ferocious. And it was really quite terrible. I mean, no offence, no attempt to recover. Sort of said, "Whoop." And then Dame Edith turned to me and she said, "This place has gone off, tell her."
You just broke the record, Kenneth. You set yourself on this show. You just answered a question longer than anybody else.
I think maybe in terms of relationships, he painted himself into a corner and fewer people were phoning back.
And the one relationship that had always worked was also disintegrating, as old age took its toll on Louis.
I'm virtually a prisoner, chained to this elderly derelict, forever reminded of geriatric problems, the stained mattress, the cigarette burns on carpets and chairs, the conversational repetition.
I think that he'd got to a stage where Lou had become a great burden to him. What had been a great
laugh at him while he was actually telling you something true about himself.
Mr. Williams, you have a spastic colon. So I've come into money.
But he would pay a price for this public exposure.
Oh, the fact is, on these chat shows, I've been eating it myself for years, just living off body fat. And people say, all he does now is go on and tell those old stories we've all heard before, with his usual lavatory gags and his camp leather. Pathetic.
He felt he was excavating himself in those chat shows, just giving more chunks of himself away. And I think he felt there wasn't much left of himself.
He'd say, "Oh, I long to be dead." So he said, "I've had enough of this world." So he said, "The pain, the agony, I can't stand it anymore, you know." And I said, "Well, don't talk so silly." I said, "What about all your friends?" And he said, "Well, yes, I'll miss them, but," he said, "you don't understand, mate." He said, "The pain is really crippling me."
William's diaries record he had mused on suicide from his earliest days, but in the last few months of his life, the idea of putting an end to his suffering began to obsess him.
What, you mean, like, say, you'd want to kill yourself or something like that?
Oh, yes, I put stuff like down about suicide and how one would go about it, what would be the best method, and all that kind of thing, you know. Looking back on it, of course, it's often, you know, quite amusing.
Why do you think you want to kill yourself?
Well, one would think it at the time because of extremely low state of morale. And one actually does write something down which is practical in terms of how one thinks one should go about it.
Counted my capsules of poison, and I've got over 30, so there should be enough to kill me. Just have to work out the time and the place.
A fortnight before he died, I saw him outside Broadcasting House, and we stood on a traffic island. He was very distressed, and he looked sort of grey, and Kenneth's face in repose sometimes was an incredibly tragic face. And he would go very sallow, and I remember thinking, I was so preoccupied with my own things, and I remember thinking, oh, I should ring him, but I didn't.
On March 21st, 1988, William's diaries reveal that he attempted an overdose, but after taking 2 barbiturates, couldn't go through with it. On April 14th, he wrote what was to be his final entry in his diary.
Had meal with Lou at 5:30. Saw the news, watched the dreary saga of murder and mayhem. By 6:30, pain in the back was pulsating as it's never done before.